The night folded itself around the city like a held breath, cold and glittering, and on that Christmas Eve a single father walked a powerful woman home without knowing that both of their lives were about to tilt, quietly and irrevocably, under the street lights. He had not planned for miracles. He had planned for groceries, for keeping his daughter warm, for surviving another winter with dignity intact. Yet fate has a way of slipping into ordinary steps, especially when hope is thin and the heart is tired. Before the story carries you further, pause for a moment. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, in the idea that small acts can quietly change everything, take a second to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs a little light tonight, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. He was the kind of man people rarely noticed unless they needed something moved or fixed. A single dad with a bent posture from carrying more than his share, he worked nights as a building attendant in a glass tower that touched the clouds and days as a father who never let his daughter see how scared he sometimes was. His wife had left the world too early, leaving him with a grief that lived in the muscles and a love that lived in the routine. Christmas had become quieter since then, more careful, measured in small joys like hot chocolate and the glow of a borrowed tree. That evening, the city hummed with celebration above him while he finished his shift, wiping down marble floors that reflected lights he would never own. She was the CEO of the company housed in that tower, a woman whose name appeared in headlines and whose decisions rippled across markets. Success had wrapped her in a tailored armor, precise and elegant, but that night the armor felt heavy. The building emptied early, executives rushing toward parties and flights, and she stayed behind to finish what no one else could. When she finally stepped into the lobby, the decorations gleamed back at her like an accusation, a reminder of a life that had been postponed for too long. The building attendant noticed her hesitation, the way she glanced at the doors as if the cold outside might swallow her whole. He offered to walk her part of the way, not as a grand gesture but as a simple kindness, the kind that had kept him human through loss. The city outside was a canvas of light, street lamps stretching like sentinels, shop windows glowing with warmth. Snow threatened but never quite fell, hanging in the air like an unspoken promise. They walked at an easy pace, the distance shrinking between strangers who carried different burdens but the same quiet loneliness. He thought of his daughter waiting at home, probably pretending to sleep so she could surprise him. She thought of an apartment filled with silence and the echo of achievements that could not hug back. As they walked, the city revealed itself in details that softened both of them. A busker played a familiar carol on a corner, the notes thin but earnest. A couple laughed too loudly under a doorway. The CEO noticed how the man walked with care, as if every step mattered, as if he had learned that rushing only led to mistakes. He noticed how she slowed to match him, shedding the sharp edges of authority with each block. The lights above them made halos in the damp air, and for a moment the world felt smaller and kinder. The challenges that shaped him were not dramatic to outsiders but were relentless in their accumulation. Bills arrived like clockwork. Sleep came in fragments. He carried guilt for every moment he worked instead of being home, and fear for every moment he could not provide more. Yet he carried something else too, a stubborn grace learned from loving someone who depended on him completely. He had learned to find dignity in service, to measure success not by titles but by bedtime stories kept and promises honored. That night, as he walked beside the most powerful person in his building, he felt no resentment, only the strange relief of being seen as a person and not a function. Her struggles were quieter, hidden behind accolades. She had climbed fast and learned to trust no one with her vulnerabilities. The company demanded everything and gave applause in return. But applause fades when the lights go out. Christmas Eve had become a reminder of what she had traded away piece by piece. As they walked, she found herself noticing the care in his observations, the way he spoke of the city as if it were a shared home rather than a battlefield. It unsettled her, in a good way, the way a forgotten song can. The moment arrived without fanfare, under a row of lights that buzzed softly against the night. They reached the corner where paths diverged, and the air seemed to thicken with something unspoken. She hesitated, feeling the weight of the quiet, the unfamiliar comfort of being accompanied without expectation. He prepared to turn back, already thinking of the kettle at home and the small rituals that made his life manageable. And then, in a voice barely louder than the hum of electricity, she asked him to stay a little longer, not as an order but as a request shaped by vulnerability. The city held its breath with them. What followed was not a confession or a promise, but a pause. And sometimes pauses are where lives change. They stood under the lights as snow finally began to fall, a few flakes at first, then enough to soften edges and sound. He stayed. They walked another block, then another, the conversation flowing more freely now. Not about work or success but about small things that mattered. He spoke of his daughter's love for cardboard stars and the way she believed magic lived in ordinary places. She spoke of a childhood memory of caroling that had been buried under years of ambition. Each shared detail stitched a bridge between worlds. Time moved differently then. The city felt less like a machine and more like a gathering of stories intersecting. When they reached her building, the entrance glowed warm and inviting. But neither of them felt ready to cross the threshold alone. He realized that staying had cost him nothing and given him something rare, the sense that his kindness mattered beyond survival. She realized that asking him to stay had cracked open a door she had kept locked for years. Under the lights, they were simply two people choosing connection over isolation. Eventually, practicality returned, as it always does. He turned back toward his neighborhood, the snow crunching under his boots, his breath fogging with each step. The walk home felt lighter. He thought of the way she had looked at the city differently after their conversation, as if seeing it anew. He thought of the way he had felt seen. At home, his daughter greeted him with sleepy joy, and the small tree glowed like a beacon. He tucked her in, told her the story of a night where kindness mattered, and felt a warmth that no heater could provide. In the days that followed, the ripple spread quietly. At work, things changed in subtle ways. Schedules shifted to be kinder. Break rooms warmed. A scholarship fund appeared without fanfare. He did not connect the dots at first, because he did not expect miracles to be personal. She, meanwhile, found herself walking more, noticing faces, remembering that leadership could be gentle without being weak. She returned to that corner under the lights more than once, letting the memory steady her when the pressure mounted. Their paths crossed again. Not as a headline but as a continuation. The connection that had sparked under the streetlights did not need spectacle to survive. It grew in shared walks, in coffee held between hands on cold mornings, in the understanding that both of them were learning how to be brave in new ways. For him, bravery meant allowing hope back into a life organized around caution. For her, bravery meant making space for someone else without calculating the cost. As Christmas came again the following year, the city looked the same but felt different. He was still a single dad, still careful, still devoted, but the weight he carried was lighter because it was shared. She was still a CEO, still decisive, but the armor had softened into something that could bend. Under the lights, where a year before she had asked him not to go yet, they stood together and watched the snow fall, understanding that the smallest moments can be the most generous. If this story is stirring something in you, if it reminds you of a kindness you gave or received that changed your path, take a moment now to like the video, share it, and let us know your thoughts. Your engagement helps these stories find the people who need them most. Before the ending fades, here's a special request. Comment below with a single word that this story made you feel, or share a small act of kindness that changed your life. Reading your words keeps this space human. Because in the end, this was never just a story about a single dad or a powerful woman. It was about choosing to stay when it would be easier to leave, about seeing the person behind the role, about understanding that under the lights we are all softer than we pretend. And if this story touched your heart, please engage with it now. Let it travel, let it matter, and let it remind us that sometimes, the most important step is simply not walking away.